Hey guys, welcome to today's video. Today I have a very special episode for you because I'm interviewing Vic Kovac from LA.
What's up guys, how you doing? Good to be here.
Vic is the frontman of the band Telling Secrets, and I had the pleasure over the past few months to mix and master his upcoming album. We'll share some details later on. And we decided to do a video about how to collaborate with a mixer and how as a mixer to collaborate with your artist. Because we found over the 3 months of working together that it can be quite difficult, especially in today's age where you do everything through the laptop, internet, maybe a Zoom call here and there. So we want to dive deeper into that. And in the upcoming second episode, we will do a rig rundown of Vic because he has some amazing gear and he produces some extremely amazing sounds that you should learn how to do. And in another video, we will also dive deep into some of the mixes so you can see exactly how the songs came to life. So let's dive into it. Hey Vic, thank you for coming online. It's amazing to do this with you.
What's up?
Today we said we want to cover just how to collaborate with a mixer, how to work together with your artist, what matters, are there things that you can let go of as a mixer, as an artist. I know I have let go of my pride and principles a long time ago. Let's dive into it. So we have a little list. Have the first discussion about the songs, expectations, fee versus end product, timeline, turnaround time, working agreement, credits, reference mixes, job scope. I think that's a video on its own. So how did we start? How did we get started? Let's start maybe there.
We met on Sound Better. It was my first time using the website. I put a listing up saying that, you know, I was looking for someone to mix a single initially, and then the idea was if the single ended up turning out good and, you know, what I imagined, and we were both up for it, then we'd go ahead and do 11 more songs.
Which is, of course, music to every mixer's ears.
Yeah, I suppose you could say it was a trial, but it wasn't really a trial because it was still work. And yeah, I think it turned out to be a happy accident. And
you know what, here I have to say right away that this was the first thing that struck me, because I receive many emails a month asking me for a free test mix, you know, and you never know the people what they want, their intentions behind it. Do they want, maybe they asked 10 mixers for a free test mix and they have their album mixed in this way, you know, 10 songs. 1 song per mixer. So I really truly appreciated that you approached this from the first moment as, okay, look, here's the first song, I pay you for it, and then if it's good, we do the rest. That's a fantastic way to approach it, I find.
You know, I have friends in other bands and you know, bigger bands, and they're all common practices. You know, you can get a mix, you can pay for a mix, you can discuss whether it's a test mix, but, you know, it's a paid thing and then there's no strings attached. And if you just make that clear from the beginning that this is one song and, you know, if you both end up getting what you wanted from it, then you can go ahead and do more. But I think the initial discussion is important, and you have to know your budget. You know, if you know that you have 12 songs worth of budget, you have to split that up and account for some misses. If you think, you know, I'm trying to find a person to mix my songs for, but I only have one shot at doing it, then there's some stress that comes with that. So you need to make a really educated, you know, decision. You need to do as much research as you can. Some of it comes down to trial and error and luck, but I think being transparent and having respect from the beginning is really important.
I remember, so in terms of expectations, reference mixes, what I found that you showed me some of your earlier songs or even the earlier mixes of the songs that we ended up redoing, and I found, okay, that this guy can produce, and here we can go into a little bit of technicalities maybe, that it was clear that things are well edited, things are in time, things are in tune, and you can actually sing, you know. So these are all great signs for a mixer seeing that, okay, this is actually a serious person. Plus, you had seemingly high budget videos for your songs, which is also a reassurance for me as a mixer that, okay, this is a serious person to work with. and of course it motivates me. So I think between us there was this mutual motivation going on. No, I dug your stuff from the first second. I think we were just pushing each other really to get better and better results.
Yeah, thank you. The editing and making sure that everything sounded, good from the source wasn't completely down to me. A lot of it was, but a lot of it was also coming from a learning experience, working with different people and getting an idea of what it should sound like before you send it for a mix. When is a song mix ready is something that I had to learn as well. Previously I sent guitar recordings to get mixed, and not because I was trying to be rude or presumptuous, it just never occurred to me that these are going to have to be edited to be gridded. And yeah, these are just things that you pick up with experience. My main goal was just to make sure that everything was labeled and put in folders so that when you opened it up you knew what to do with it. And then I tried to make sure that if something wasn't up to standard, that I could do something to make it better. If there was any issue with the quality of any file, which I know some are better than others, but hopefully they're all passable. But yeah, it's just, being aware of that things need to already be at a certain level before you then send it off to someone else, because essentially your problems then can be inherited to whoever's taking care of the next stage of the production of the song. So
absolutely. Oh, that's such a good way of looking at it. Yeah, you're right that one of the things I receive always is audio 1, audio 2, audio 3. So thank you. That's half an hour figuring that out. And how did you learn to edit and produce in this way? And tell me more about the prepping, because your files were exceptionally well prepared. How did you learn how to edit? What is it that you focus on when you edit? It's not just the grid, but also I noticed that all of the noise was already gone, for instance. What else was there that you did? And very important also, I think, where do you draw the line between production and mixing?
Edit-wise, the first few songs that I put out, I got a guy called Zach to mix it. A really cool guy. He plays drums in Rain City Drive, and that was kind of the first lesson for me. That was the occurrence, the time I mentioned where I sent the guitars recorded, but that's all they were, just recorded. And I thought they were mix ready, and they weren't. So I learned something there that they have to be aligned. But yeah, edit wise, I do each note by hand in Pro Tools and line it up. Wow. So it takes ages, but I listen to it. So if it sounds like it's super tight with the MIDI drums, then I trust that, and that's what I go with. And actually, it's funny when it comes to the bass. We've been using MIDI bass, but I've noticed that there's a little tiny bit of attack delay on the MIDI bass as well. So sometimes I'll line that up with the guitars as well, just to make it perfect. Wow. I don't know if that's me being superstitious, but I feel like I can hear a very, very slight difference, so I move it. But yeah, so that's how the editing thing happened. Vocal editing, again, I've had other people.
Hugely important. Yes.
Yeah, I think generally people who are maybe new to it or new to the really polished genres of music, they want to steer away from auto-tune and like hyper editing stuff. And I think that's fine for some genres. I just prefer if there's nothing left up to chance, if I know that everything is as tight as it can be. But yeah, that was a learning experience as well. I had somebody else edit my vocals previously, and they did a good job. It came out sounding great. When you listen to the isolated tracks, they were, you could hear indiscrepancies, but you couldn't hear it in the final mix. So that's probably something that I would like to learn, because ultimately the end product is what's important. Melodyne, Antares, Vocaline in Pro Tools, that's the workflow. And
wow,
I have to
all of them.
All of them. All of them. And yeah, time wise, at the moment, it probably to edit all vocals for one song, leads, dubs, backgrounds, 10 hours for me. Just because there's always something. But yeah, it's time consuming, but it is really, really important.
I guess at this point we can quickly jump into screen recording here as well. Guys, you will see this is so many vocal tracks. It is almost unbelievable, but once you hear the record and you hear the songs, you will see that this is what it takes to make a big sound. You cannot leave it to chance, as Vic said. You need a lead, a double, and then 50 harmonies or 100 with doubles and everything else. So this is what it takes to make a good song, and this yes, it cannot be underestimated. And actually, I did find a few things. I think you can see the screen here as well. I did end up doing some additional editing and chopping here as well that needed to be done.
Thanks for taking care of the extra stuff.
Yeah, no, you have to, because also with added compression, I mean, what artists also have to understand. I just told an artist yesterday to edit everything with a limiter set to -10 with like 10 dB gain reduction, because then you hear everything. Then you hear the things, you hear the double breaths, you hear the noises, the mouth clicks, and everything that has to go or has to be fixed or faded in, faded out, crossfaded properly. Often when you just edit a pure recording, you don't hear these things, and I fell victim of this many times. And it was only once I worked with my former boss in his studio, Yoad Nivo, where I learned the ins and outs of editing these instruments and really getting rid of all the problems. I mean, he made me edit the breaths onto a different track, but he told me stories of other mixers that require their assistants to edit even the sibilant sounds, like the S's, onto different tracks. So this is the level of detail that some people go to get a certain level of quality. And here we're talking, of course, a platinum pop level. And of course, the other thing is that once you start mixing, things clear up. Frequencies disappear that don't need to be there, the good stuff gets boosted. So as the vocal becomes more audible, or the guitar becomes more audible through the process of mixing, and you add the compression, which of course brings up the low level hidden stuff, like on a vocal, by the end of the process, there can be 30 to 50 dB of compression by the time we reached mastering. So you will hear absolutely everything that was hidden in the background before, which is, just a mind-blowing concept, but very important to understand. There's a very interesting thing here, which is a repeating pattern, and I'm struggling with this with a client right now. Demoitis. Go.
The beast. So, for those who have never heard the word demoitis before, you have your song that maybe you've produced or someone else produced for you, and you've had it for a while and you've listened to it over and over and over again, and you're used to how it sounds. You're used to the drum samples, the guitar tones, the positioning of the vocal, but it's not necessarily good or finished. It's just what you're used to. And so many times, even me in the past, if I had a mix from someone else, they send me the first mix and my initial reaction is, I don't like it. It's not necessarily bad or, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just different to what you've been listening to. So I think it's really, really important to know about Demoitis and to give yourself a chance to put it to one side. Listen to the new version a lot. Try to forget the old version. Pick out the things that you like about the new version. Maybe some things that you'd like to incorporate. It's just something that's such a common issue. But having said that, the first song that you did for me, Martin, I didn't have it. I already loved it. I think you struck a really, really good balance between what I had sent and what was already there, mainly in terms of synths, because there was a lot of electronic elements in the song. So I felt like I had the familiarity that I wanted to feel good, but then also you gave it that boost and that extra clarity that we got together for. So yeah, you just have to be aware of it, because I think sometimes you end up changing stuff that's actually that would be a good decision to keep just because you're not used to it.
I just had a project right now. We ended up doing 4 or 5 revisions, and then the artist told me, actually, let's just go back to V1, push up the vocal 1 dB and the guitar solo 2 dBs, and that's it.
Yeah.
And they were really struggling with the concept, Demoitis a little bit, and what it should be.
Well, version 4 is all right.
It's not too bad, yeah.
We've broken into double digits
a
few times.
And I guess that's a good segue. Let's get into the number of revisions then. We want home runs. We want mix V1. Thank you. Martin, you're amazing. Here's your money. That's my dream scenario, and I can count on 2 hands maybe how often this happened in my career so far. That's over many, many, many mixes. I do think we pushed the envelope in this regard a little bit. V5-6 is quite normal, I think, with people you work together with for the first time, with new songs, new genres, or new styles. So let me just show this here, my friends. This is V12.
See you later. Thanks for having me.
So I guess here it's a little bit my time to speak for a moment, because what I found with you, which I don't find with many other people, is that your requests were reasonable. Changing minor details that needed to be changed or addressed in a very complex song, in a very complex production and a very complex mix. We are talking, most songs, guys, 100 plus tracks. So I wasn't particularly upset. We ended up replacing a lot of tracks because you kept noticing imperfections in the vocals, and I understood from the first start that, okay, this is a project that you wanted to be out there. I knew from the beginning that you were going to make music videos. You knew the marketing, like starting the machine. You aren't just a bedroom producer who puts up the music on Spotify and then thinks he's going to be a star. You actually do the work. And that made me motivated to also put in the work and go these extra steps to make sure we have something that is like as close to 100% as it can be. But I'm curious, at which version were you like, damn, no, I can't send this to Martin. I cannot do that.
Well, I think it depends on the song. Like for this one, for example, we had something with the cymbals for probably like 3 or 4 versions. But yeah, you know, it probably around the first time, I think probably around 6 or 7. I think Closer was version 4. Some of the other songs were, 6, 7, and then the other ones were, getting into double digits. But yeah, probably 6 or 7, I was starting to feel some kind of embarrassment. But, ultimately, I would rather say it. And then,
Yeah.
I can make the decision on whether I say something or not. And I think you can too. You can also say, like, you could challenge a note or anything. And I invited you to, challenge notes often, because I was considering how much work we still had left to do, how much work we had done already. And I just think, it's better to just talk. If you get annoyed at something that I say, then that's fine. It's an emotion and it's a lot of work. You do get to a point where it's, if there's like a tiny detail that you have to think like, okay, is anybody else going to know about this than me? Does it actually affect the big picture? Is this something that I should let go of so that we can move on to the next thing because it's not really that important? Does it affect the whole thing? Yeah, I think you have to feel it out depending on where you are.
Yeah, stigma comes into mind here, where we ended up obsessing over one word. I think we replaced that file, that one word, probably 10 times.
Oh my God.
Just to find out that it was what?
It was a burp sounding Tom issue.
It was a Tom hit in the background that we didn't notice, which blew my mind. I was so happy by the end of it. I wanted to tease you for the next 10 years and not tell you, but I couldn't do it.
Yeah, it's funny. I always thought that, knowing some technical terms in terms of production would help with notes. But the one thing that helped in this case was the most direct, uneducated description. Because that was one of those as well, where, we got up to version, I don't know how much, for this one word. The rest of the song sounded great. Nothing really changed. Maybe we changed like the level of the vocal. But yeah, I just had to say, I felt an urge to describe it to you as it's kind of like a burp. And then, you got it from that. So trust your ears.
Yes, indeed. It is a problem sometimes when people, especially those who are not as educated in this subject of production mixing, so they don't know the engineering terms, but they try to use engineering terms in their feedback, which is completely useless for me. So if you don't know, and just generally, you don't know what I'm doing as an artist, you don't sit next to me, unfortunately, it would be much easier, but that's not the case. But I have people tell me, oh, Martin, maybe increase the ratio on the compressor from 3:1 to 4:1 on the vocal. And I said, well, listen, I'm using an LA2A, so there isn't a ratio knob. So, so I much rather prefer, look, this seems a bit loud, make it quieter, or we have this problem, use your tools to fix it. Like, it's too bright. Don't tell me reduce 10K 3 dB, because you don't know how that will feel on layers of compression, limiting, reverb, all of that. Just tell me it's too bright and I'll use whatever I have to use to make it less bright in the end. Okay, so let's talk quickly about timelines and turnaround times, and then about working agreements and credits. I think that's two very important aspects. How did you approach this project, mixing an entire album, in terms of timeline?
Initially, I wanted to have everything ready by January, early February. We got in touch, maybe September, but it was around there. So, you know, with the Christmas holiday in mind, I had about 3.5 months in mind to get 12 songs done. And, you know, we spoke about that. We discussed the important stuff, like obviously budget, which was probably made a bit easier with Sound Better because you can see the price. So price, timeline of when the whole work needs to be delivered, we discussed. And you should have a work agreement in place to know, you know, where everybody stands after the project. Is it a work for hire agreement? If there's no work for hire thing in writing, then technically it's a collaboration. But then, you know, you have to judge the situation as well. But those are the important things.
I think with music especially, or arts, creative things, is that there is no really, unless you are already part of the big label machinery, there often isn't a hard deadline. That's what I find. So I think it's helpful to work towards like an estimated timeline, to say, okay, end of March or something like that. So you push a little bit, because getting lazy, especially over an album, is very easy. You can get into a slump, and you need this continuous motivation to keep going. And then if it gets pushed by a week or a little bit, that's completely fine, as long as you keep working towards what you have set out for yourself. What would you say is I'm very curious, what is a reasonable turnaround time for you to receive a song back from a mixer? First time working with the person, first song.
First mix or first finished?
Good question. Good question. Let's do both. What do you think? First mix and then finished.
I think
product.
First mix. If it's 2, 3, 4 days, that's fine, because, you know, the mixer also has to find the flavor or the pocket where his sound, the artist's sound, and the reference tracks that the artist has sent, you know, all come together and reflect all of those things. So I think, yeah, between 2 and 4, maybe 5 days would be what I think. And then going on from that, you know, depending on how crazy the mix notes are, if the mix notes are just nudges or tweaks, you want to get it done as soon as possible. I had notes, and then the next day you already had the next version, which was really, really good. If it was 2 days, I would have been happy as well. But the fact that, you know, you did stuff the next day, sometimes even the same day, made a really, really big difference. It really, really does help move things along and suppress any like frustrations. I think overall for one song, you know, you could probably get it done in about 2 weeks, a week, 2 weeks. You can probably get there. Even if you're, you know, even if it is one of those songs where you're up at like version 12, like this one.
Yeah.
You know, I think within the first 2-3 days it was kind of there or thereabouts, and then we were just changing, like, you know, things. So it depends. If the person that you're working with can reflect the artist's enthusiasm in, you know, how quickly they do stuff, that's brilliant. You know, you have to understand that no one is going to be as excited about the song as the artist, because it's the artist's thing.
That's a very good point. That's a very good point. For the mixers out there, this is definitely something to keep in mind. And yes, for the mixers watching this, I think 2 to 3 days for the first mix is reasonable. I teach that the first mix should be done realistically within maximum 4 or 5 hours, because at one point you yourself as a mixer get into just oversaturation. You don't know what you're doing anymore. I think the value of a mixer is the first impressions, and the skill of a mixer is to efficiently act on the first impressions fast, quickly. So my first impression is the vocal is muddy. I'm not going to go through 100 EQs or look for the frequency, because I know, okay, muddy, I have to do this, I use this EQ, done, 10 seconds, and then move on. Then the tweaks, they take as long as they take, and I push myself to do at least one revision a day. I think we owe that to the artist, absolutely. It speeds things up a lot. I do more than that if possible. If the communication and the time zone works, then yes, let's do 2-3 revisions a day if it's reasonable. And let's get the song done and let's move on to the next one, absolutely. Or do you have something else to say?
Is it just a mixing job, or is there production involved? Are you reamping guitars? Are you putting samples on, MIDI drums, which is what we did? You have to prep the thing. Even though the files are there and organized, you still have to prep. That's a step before the mixing.
It's a very good point. The prep of these mixes, that was a job on its own. That took almost more time in some cases than getting the mix done. Because once we established a framework, it was just moving the new files into an existing almost template that served as the basis to shape the next song. Now, the recording was sometimes different, the style was different, so of course, things always changed song to song, but basically we worked within a framework that we established with the first song, and then we tweaked things from there. But if I open all of the folders up here, arranging, finding, editing so many tracks, that is definitely something. It wasn't even the biggest job I had while we were working together. I had a song with 180 tracks from someone else.
Which one was that?
But that's just ridiculous. I have to find it. I can't remember exactly, but I remember the number really well, trust me. Let's talk about the big topic. Where does production end and where does mixing begin from an artist's perspective?
Yeah, I think probably the two easiest ways to separate the two, in my mind anyway. If you have to change a sound so much that it would be easier just to, make a new track in Logic or Pro Tools or whatever and put new plugins on, whether it's a pitch shift effect for vocals or something like that, then, that's probably a production thing. If we're talking about time-based effects like reverb and delay on vocals, that's mixing. Panning or the positioning of things, that's mixing. If we're talking about compression, how in your face the vocal is, that's mixing. Yeah, when it comes to actually changing the sound itself, that's production. So yeah, putting amp simulators on DI guitars, selecting drum samples, selecting synth patches and things like that, I think that's production. And then the third stage, which sometimes gets forgotten about, is the editing as well. And I think that's how I would put them in my mind. So editing stage kind of one, but then there's production, which technically starts before the editing, because you know what the song sounds like because you've produced the sounds. So they kind of swap places a little bit, and then mixing.
I would also add that things that significantly change the feel, for instance, you can edit your vocals in a way that it changes the phrasing a little bit. That's a different type of editing, maybe that's what you referred to a second ago, than me removing the noise between two phrases, for instance.
Yeah.
So technically this is editing as well, but moving this note over here a little bit to change the feel, that's a different type of editing, so that would be more production then. Here I have to then go back to my previous point, is that I cannot act quickly enough on my first impression if my time and attention is being taken by things like removing noise or inconsistencies in timing of an instrument. So it's very difficult to mix a song, and I had this recently where nothing was in time. I don't know what he was doing. The guitars were not in time, the drums were in time because they were MIDI. The bass was all over the place, and the vocals were not in tune. So first of all, how am I gonna mix that if the whole thing doesn't sound like a song in the first place? So this is production. This has to be further produced. it has to be edited. Vic, I think this was a great conversation. I think we covered a lot of ground. I'm sure that fellow artists, producers working from home like yourself will really appreciate the insight that you gave them. I think our collaboration was a really good example of how things should work out in the end. The communication was really good from the beginning. I really appreciated that you are business savvy. You really understand the music as a business, and I see that in what you do now, and we see that in the music videos and the effort you put in marketing, branding, promoting yourself. So there's a lot that people can learn from you, and I'm very much excited to dig deeper into your brain in future videos. I think you could definitely do a solo video about promotion, branding, marketing, that kind of stuff if you're interested. Or we can do one together, because I know many artists are struggling with that.
For any musicians watching, from my perspective, I can only wish that, you know, there were more mixers and engineers who are like you know, understanding what the artist wants, reacting quickly to, you know, messages, and just being available, both in terms of good correspondence and obviously a killer delivery of the songs. So yeah, if people learned something from this video, then great. We definitely talked about a lot of points that maybe get forgotten. So yeah, I'm looking forward to more.
Amazing. In the next video, guys, we will do a rig rundown of what Vic has at home, how we created some killer guitar sounds. It is going to be the next one or the one after, where we also dive into the mix. I'll show you exactly Hearst drums, how it works, and how we got to some pretty good drum sounds, I would say, very convincing. So we'll talk a bit more about production as well. We'll talk about the use of MIDI instruments, because in these songs, even the real bass is a MIDI bass, very interestingly, so we have to talk about that for sure. Microphone choices, of course, so a lot of ground to cover, guys. And I was today with Vic from Telling Secrets, and there will be more videos to come, so stay tuned, and until then, happy mixing. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next video.